Hey guys, Casey here, gonna give you a quick Lake of the Ozarks fishing report. It's basically mid-October right now, and we got water temperatures still in the 70s. Getting a little bit of rain right now for the first time in a long time, so that can't hurt anything, but the fishing's been kind of tough lately. Just in the last week or so, we had the Big Bass Bash, and a lot of boats on the water. These fish got a lot of pressure. And I had guide trips all last week after the bash, and fishing was a little bit slow. We caught a lot of nice fish, a lot of nice keepers, but we didn't get a whole lot of numbers. And I could see a ton of fish on my Garmin live scope, and they were being fickle last week. And kind of the theme on this lake for me has been to kind of let the fish tell you what to do for any particular day. I mean, the fishing is changing every single day. The position of the bait fish is changing every single day. And these fish just seem to be in different moods. So you might catch them one day where they're really biting, whether it's a jig, a topwater, a crankbait, and then go there the next day and it feels like a ghost town. So you kind of got to stay on your toes and kind of try some different stuff. If you're not getting bites, be sure to switch things up. I got, as you can see behind me, I got all my 6-gill rods and reels laid out. Got a ton of different baits, and all of them are working. It just kind of depends on the situation and where you're at. So I'll go through some of these baits, and we'll talk about the lake a little bit. We've been fishing mostly the lower end of the lake. We had I had a couple trips mid-lake last week with around Hurricane Deck and above. So I fished up to about the 45-mile marker in the last couple weeks, and we're starting to experience some fall turnover in parts of the lake. You can kind of tell where that's happening. You'll see some green stuff kind of floating on the water. The water color kind of changes, and it usually happens in the back ends of some of these creeks. And so, that started in some of the mid-lake river portions, and I've seen it down here on the lower end starting as well in the backs of some of these creeks. So, when I see that, I typically try to stay away from it. It's a big lake. I'm looking for stable water, so I try to stay away from that turnover type water, which is kind of like a bright green kind of look to it. You'll know. I mean, you're fishing along and you got kind of the same water clarity all day, and then you'll get into some of that stuff, and it just kind of changes. It just has a weird look to it. So with a little bit of time on the water, you'll be able to tell when you get in some of those areas. And they're just areas I typically just keep moving. The next creek over may not even have that turnover going on. So I just kind of keep on the move when I see that going on. But the jig bite has been the staple for me. I've got 3 jigs laid out on my deck right now. And just different sizes for different areas. So half ounce has been a good one to go with. This is a half ounce pro jig from Trophy Bass Company. Great for skipping docks, good for fishing brush, rocks. So super versatile jig, and that's why I got it on all of my rods right now. But this one's a half ounce. It's been doing a lot of the work for me. Got a T-craw on the back of it. That's a great trailer. Produces a lot of action when you're swimming it in and on the fall. Just a really good bait, and it's durable as well, which I like when fishing around boat docks. It helps that jig stay up on the hook that trailer rather, stay up on that jig a little bit better when you're skipping it under boat docks. And of course, when you miss a bite, it also stays on there, and you can kind of drop it back down to that fish and hopefully get him to bite again. But the jig has been really good for me. I've been fishing it around boat docks mostly, and I'm just kind of picking out docks that are around the shad. So I'm looking for, docks with cover underneath them, brush piles, cables, lots of shade, boat lifts, things like that. I'm looking for some cover to be around. They're not always on the cover. And I'm also fishing a lot of docks, with crossbars and lots of shade and stuff like that, kind of around the shad as well. I'm just keeping an eye out for good-looking targets around the shad, and that's really the whole key. In one creek where the shad are in the very backs of the creeks, I'll catch them on those boat docks. You know, if you go to the next creek and they're 2/3 of the way out, you know, I'll try to fish around the boat docks where I see those shad and pick out the best looking dock around and fish it. And, you know, that's kind of what I've been doing. You know, sometimes you strike out and sometimes you catch some fish. So just kind of keeping on the move. It seems like these fish are changing daily, but they really do want to suspend around these docks. And swimming a jig has been really productive too. You can take that 1/2 ounce, 5/8 ounce jig, let it drop down to the bottom on a shallow dock, and then just kind of swim it back to the boat, you know, giving it some short pops, but just keep it steady under the floats. Or you can just go out there, put your mind to it, throw that jig, let it drop a few feet, and just constantly reel it all day, you know, and commit to that. And you can get a lot of bites doing it. A lot of times I'll just wait for the fish to kind of tell me what to do. You know, if I get some fish following it back to the boat, I'll start swimming that jig. Topwater has been really good on certain days. You know, I'll catch them one day on it and think it's about to be, you know, game over. You know, every fish in the lake's gonna just jump on it, and then I'll go 3 days without them eating it very well. But this is something I throw a lot. This is the Tackle HD Worldwide Buzzer. Produces a lot of sound. It's a good running buzz bait. Never gets out of tune very easily. You know, you can catch several fish on it without having to mess with your buzz bait. You know, catch one, put it in the live well, you know, get it working, throw it back out there. So that's what I love about that bait. It's real low maintenance and it catches big fish. So I'm throwing that around basically everything, you know, points, big rocks. The lake's down a couple feet right now. So a lot of good shoreline covers kind of out of the water. So I'm fishing a lot of new water with that. A lot of the stuff I like to fish is kind of sitting on the bank. So you know, any kind of concrete, bigger rocks, chunk rock, that slab rock that we have all over the lake. Really looking for big shad there as well. You can catch them in the creeks on that. You can catch them on the main lake, points, secondaries. You know, really just, you know, put that Garmin trolling motor on high and, you know, put your batteries to use and drain them by the end of the day. That's what I do. I got the Expion 360 lithiums back here, and I don't think you could drain those over the course of the day. I actually left the boat unplugged at the Truman Lake Toyota Series on the final day, and so you can definitely fish 2 full tournament days without charging those bad boys. But man, you know, I'll just put my foot on that trolling motor, and when I'm throwing that buzz bait or plopper, or, you know, I got a walking bait out here, you know, it's really, I got all 3 on the deck. You know, for the open water situations, I kind of like that walking bait, like around boat docks, around fish that are schooling, stuff like that. But for the most part, you know, with all 3 of those baits, you put that trolling motor on high and you just throw them all day and see what you come up with at the end of the day. A lot of times it feels like you're making a bad decision when you go hours without a bite, but it's kind of a high risk, high reward type scenario with the Topwater. We've been having some really, really nice days out here as far as the weather goes. I mean, beautiful weather, sunny conditions, not a lot of wind, which means not very good spinnerbait fishing. But we've been catching a few on it. Evenings, mornings have been really good. Fishing it around shallow boat docks has been really good. But, you know, we're getting a little rain, like I said, right now, and the fishing should kick off on this spinnerbait, like, really, really good. So right now I got the CS2 spinnerbait here from Tackle HD. This is a 3/4 ounce. I believe the color is mouse. So I've got 2 in this same color laid out. I've got a 1/2 ounce and I've got that 3/4 for fishing down a little deeper. Caught some on the Ozark Flash last week. I was in another section of the lake and I was rolling around some shallow boat docks. My buddy Kevin caught some nice ones on the Ozark Flash last week, so that's working as well. But I was fishing down here in this clear water this weekend, so I went with more of a translucent, natural look. And I just kind of switched my spinnerbaits up to whatever the watercolor looks like. You know, we're still in the 70s right now as far as water temp goes. And man, you can still catch them out deep. So got my jigs laid out. I'm kind of putting my rods up as I'm talking to you and going through them. But here's another one I got, 3/4 ounce jig. Really good for fishing deep, whether it's a deep dock, cables. You know, these fish are still on these points and stuff like that, deep brush piles. So caught a few this past week, 15, 20 foot of water out of brush. So they're kind of doing a little bit of everything. Those fish were real close to the main lake. You know, I've been catching some on some structure out there as well. They just haven't been really the size I've been looking for. And, you know, the fish in this lake, we got 100 miles of lake to work with, a lot of miles of shoreline. So they're out there, trust me. And this 3/4 ounce jig and even bigger is a great way to kind of probe that deep bite this time of year. I also like a deep crankbait as well. Kind of use it as a search bait, you know, brand of choice. You know, get out there, get some, you know, 10 to 12 pounds. Bass Pro Shops fluorocarbon, you know, 6.4 to 1, you know, gear ratio, 6 skill reel. Get it on a big rod, 7'6", you know, 7'10", 8-footer. Get it out there, throw it a long ways, and crash that deep diving crankbait into anything you can come into contact with. Focus on points, secondary points, bluffs, you know, places with deep water, flats with deep water close by, brush, all that stuff's good. So take that jig and take that crankbait. If you're wanting to fish out deep, you can see that one's got bit. He took one of my claws off. But take that bigger bait and a little bit heavier jig and get out there and kind of probe some of that deep water if you're looking for a bite that not a lot of guys are doing. It's been a little slow for me, but sometimes you can strike gold out there. So always worth looking at. These fish are doing absolutely everything with the water temp being in the 70s. But as it drops, you know, we're gonna keep going into spinnerbait. We're even gonna start throwing you know, baits like the wiggle wart or the crankhead from Tackle HD, some of these crankbaits on rocky banks. You know, the fiddlesticks jerk bait's working real good. We've been catching fish on a jerk bait right now, suspended around a lot of these docks. Oh, and another great bait for us. And it seems like they will bite this most days. Cloudy, windier days are even better. But this is the fluke minnow from Tackle HD. It's a great little bait, super soft, which allows you to hook those fish really good on this, better than like a fluke. You know, I like throwing a fluke on the back of chatterbait and stuff because it's a little bit harder. But this fluke minnow, when I'm actually twitching it around docks, seems to hook them a little bit better. So it has great action and, you know, really good bait. Plopper style bait, I got that rigged up here. And it's been real productive on certain days. So just like the buzz bait, you're gonna get out there, cover a bunch of water with it, and you know, I just kind of see which one they prefer. Lately, they've been preferring the buzz bait for me. And I even got an Alabama rigged up. Of course, it's tangled in everything behind me, which is kind of what I do with that. I'm not the best at throwing the Alabama rig, but I've been catching them a few on that around some boat docks and around some fish kind of in some bait. So, you know, I went through a lot of rods right there and all of them are you know, working somewhat. You know, we're fishing a lot of different kinds of cover this year, or this time of year. So, you know, we got a lot of options out here to show these fish, and you can kind of pick your poison this time of year, whether you want to stick with fishing shallow around shallow cover, shallow boat docks, whether you want to stick with fishing deep, brush piles, top water. You know, you can do it all throughout the course of a day, which I try to do a lot of times, or you know, you can kind of pick one and go with it, be hard-headed, stick with it all day, and you're gonna get some bites. So a lot of options out there right now, and as we get some cooler nights and the water temperature starts to drop, the fishing's gonna get really, really, really good. So keep that trolling motor on high. Yeah, you know, if you got the live scope, even better. You know, it helps follow these fish around a little bit. And make sure to have some good batteries on your boat. Check out these Expion 360s. Check out my guys at Wholesale Batteries. They'll hook you up. They got a great selection down there, and you're gonna need some battery power this time of year if you're gonna be throwing that topwater and chasing these fish up shallow, because you really gotta stay on the move, and covering a lot of water is kind of key. So good luck out there. Hope you guys catch some big fish, and we'll give you another report here in a week or two.